Hi, you guys.
Hi, Mark. Thank
Hey,
you so much.
Mark, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good. Thank you for doing this.
My pleasure. What do you guys do? You like my sunglasses?
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
These are official Doodads sunglasses.
Yeah.
I got
They're
these.
not rose-colored, though.
Huh?
They're not rose-colored, those.
No, their sunglass color are blue for the. Have you heard of the band the Doodads?
No.
They do music for kids, but they're actually rock and roll guys like Matt Kessler.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, they play like songs like brush your teeth, things like that. But anyway, they gave these glass, they fold up like this, and then they go in this little case, and they like gave these to people like a promotional thing.
Huh.
The Doodads, isn't that cool?
That's cool.
Anyway, I didn't know if there was going to be a show and tell or not. So
I've got a whole stack of stuff here that I'm prepared to show and tell with. If the PowerPoint doesn't quite get the.
Yeah, I hear you.
Hey, Joy Zimmerman.
I collected a few too, just in case you need. Hi, Joy. Are you doing 2 shows a week right now, Diana?
I've been doing 2 shows a week for the last 2 months. Tomorrow is my last Tuesday show. And then I'm not really sure what's going to happen after that, although Ed Madrigal is going to do week after next.
Is he going to fill in until they permanently?
Yes, I believe
cool.
so. He's willing to do that.
Cool.
Whether he does or not. There's Amber. She got her link to get in here.
Danny, the guitars in your room are looking nice behind you.
Well, thank you. I actually play with all of them too.
Not just for show.
No?
And here's a fun fact. He just got all the holes in that wall patched, sanded, and painted today so that it would look nice for the ceiling. It's looking a little ragged.
There is something to this day and age about having a good Zoom background, and you're really passing the test there, Danny. What was that, Mark?
I'm just saying I cheated and put a virtual background, but I did make the photo collage. I took the picture and made the collage. So
that's the transmitter, isn't it?
No, it's the Channel 5 tower that's over by KCPT.
Oh.
It's not their tower, it's Channel 5's tower, but it's right behind their studios. But I like that tower because it's sort of a midtown landmark. And I just took a couple of pictures of it and then made this little collage for the hell of it.
So using the back, if I move it over this way a little bit, I've got my first crushes back there on the wall.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Danielle, they always look at my guitars and then they look at her bar. And my guitars don't mean anything. It's all about the bar.
Funny.
I just love how everybody's jumping on here and everybody's punctual. Yay. Julia Othmer.
Hi, Julia.
Hi. Happy Monday to everybody. Hi, Danielle. Hi.
Hi, Julia. Happy Monday.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, the energy level just took it up a notch. Yeah.
Superstar.
Yes. To those of you I don't know, will you please put your info in the chat so I can follow you and, support you in whatever you're doing, please? I'm Julia.
Yeah, I think the chat room's going to get a workout here in a little bit.
Half the people that signed up are here, so we're getting there.
let's give it maybe to 7:05 and then we'll start. I've got 7:03.
Okay.
And good to see you, Nikki.
Tasha. We have a dog involved. I love it.
It's Tasha. She's been so quiet all day, and this is the time in the evening when everybody in our neighborhood starts walking their dogs and walking their kids and stuff. And she's so jealous because she's not out there. So she has to get vocal about every single dog that goes by.
Oh.
And I've got all the windows open so she can hear everything. It's such a nice day today, temperature wise. I was so glad to be able to open the windows. I think I know everybody that's on here so far except Amber. Amber, have we met before?
Amber's the president of the board of the Midwest Music Foundation.
Oh.
How about that, Amber?
She's a superstar, for sure.
I thought I recognized you, but I'm not recognizing your last name.
Yes, yeah, because I'm Amber Tennille on social media. I go by my middle name.
Okay, because I was like, I think I'm gonna no.
Yeah. Yeah, so different name.
Amber, congratulations on being elected president.
Oh, thank you.
Because you're also a superstar volunteer also.
Thank you. I hope we get some new programs rolling for everybody.
Definitely. Yeah, if you ever want to come on the radio and talk about anything, you're always welcome.
Thank you.
I think we're only missing 3 or 4, Danny. Do you want to go ahead and get started?
We can, yeah. Hold on.
We're recording this, by the way, so if anybody wants it when we're finished.
Okay, I'm putting some up here so I can read about these famous people that we have with us tonight. Well, I want to welcome everybody to this little panel discussion with 2 of my favorite DJs, and actually one of them I live with. So she's, Mark, I'm sorry, man, but she ranks a little bit higher than you, but that's okay. I still love you, man.
I know I'm kind of like the third wheel here on this whole thing, so I'm happy to be here.
But I'm Danny Powell. I'm president of the Heartland Song Network, and we're a nonprofit that was organized just last April, as a matter of fact. So we're a little over a year old, and we've hit the ground running and done a lot of things throughout the year through this pandemic. And one of the things we've been really doing is having a lot of webinars and panel discussions to bring information that we feel may be a need to the makers of music in our heartland. And our mission is empowering the creation of the song through education, collaboration, and mentorship. And I would say for the last year, we've hit all 3 of those in stride, even though we were hit with this pandemic and it kind of locked everybody down. We kind of pivoted and started really, as a board of directors, wanted to put things out in front of our artists and our music makers to keep them engaged and keep them lifted up as much as we can. And I have a couple of board members here. Diana, who is on the panel tonight, she is the secretary and the co-founder of the organization. And then Rex Pryor is also on the board, and he's the treasurer of the organization. And then we got the lovely Danielle Anderson, who does all of our social media work. So all that information you get is by her expertise, and we're so glad to have her doing that. And she stays on top of the rest of us to get us the information. During this pandemic, we did a survey, and we were asking the people in our organization. We sent it out to about 300 people, and the responses we've gotten were, you know, at that time, a lot of people just wanted to play and they wanted places to play, but they also wanted information about, you know, how to gain audiences and increase their audience. And so, you know, as a board, we've kind of been looking at what can we do to help that. And one of the things is, you know, this idea about sending your CDs or your digital files with your one sheets and that type of thing to radio. And radio is still a very significant part of the industry, especially for independent artists. And a lot of times that is the way you're going to get heard and gain audience through that. I mean, you can get on Spotify and all of those things, but you're going to get swept up into the tornado of digital music, which there's millions of. But these small community radio stations like KKFI are a very significant part of you getting your music out and helping you build an audience. And we have one of the best community radio stations in the United States right here in Kansas City. I mean, the KKFI is, what are you, on 30, almost 35 years now?
33.
33 years they've been in existence. And it's a 100,000 watt radio station. Very significant. There's very few community radio stations within the United States that has the power and the reach that KKFI has. And you know, with that, I am very fortunate, and we are all very fortunate to have two of the, I think, the best DJ programmers within the KKFI today, and that's Diana Linn with the Tasty Brew and Mark Manning with the Mid Day Medley. And I'm just going to read a little bit of biography about their radio biography, and then I'm going to open it up to Mark and Diana, and they can make a statement, and then we'll go through this process. I would like for you all to kind of keep your sound off. And if you have any questions, if you would type them in the chat, we will get to them, and we can. I'll ask the questions of the panel, and we'll get through this, and hopefully you'll gain some information and that will help you in the future. And this is being recorded, so if you want this in the future, you can just email us, and we can send this to you for reference down the road. So with that being said, Diana Linn Ennis is co-founder and board of director of the secretary of the Heartland Song Network. She is a member of the American Music Association, Folk Alliance International, and volunteers in multiple capacities at 90.1 FM KKFI, Kansas City's 100,000 watt, 24/7 streaming community radio station. Since 2010, she has curated and hosted a weekly radio program featuring Americana roots music called The Tasty Brew. Diana also hosts the Tasty Brew music podcast, available on multiple podcasting platforms. And I will say that also with that, Diana has been on from 6 to 8 on every Tuesday morning for 10 plus years. And tomorrow morning is her last Tuesday morning. And she will be moving to Friday morning from 10 to noon. So for all of you folks that don't get up at 6 o'clock, now you can reach her and listen to her from 10 o'clock on a Friday morning. Diana's retired from a 40 plus year career as a real estate paralegal and title insurance escrow manager. She has been a lifelong supporter of the arts, traveling throughout the United States and attending music festivals, music conferences, and house concerts. Mark Manning is the host and producer of Mid Day Medley, 10 to noon, Wednesdays on 90.1 FM KKFI. Tim Finn wrote in the KC Star that Wednesday Midday Medley was one of the 3 best places to hear local music on KC's airwaves. Mark's was the first radio show to play Madison Ward and the Mama Bear, Calvin Arsenia, the Black Creatures, Crystal Warren, Shy Boys, and many others. Mark has volunteered at 90.1 FM since 2001, which makes this year your 20th year, Mark, of volunteering. That's fantastic. And he served as secretary on the board from 2004 to 2009, active member chair from 2016 to 2018, and programmer representative from 2018 to 2019. Mark served as a host and producer of The 10th Voice from 2001 to 2009, a program he created for the LGBTQIA communities. Mark coordinated a monthly youth radio edition inviting young people from area high schools and middle schools to produce and host. Mark received a Silver Reel Award from the National Federation of Community Broadcasters for the AIDS radio show he created with Lisa Cortez, John Piggy Coopet is it? Yeah. And Greg Hansen. While at KKFI, Mark has interviewed hundreds of guests, including Lily Tomlin, Laurie Anderson, Tommy Ramone, Iris DeMint, Greg Brown, Judy Shepard, Chris Williamson, Tim Miller, Kate Clinton, Thomas Frank, Amy Goodman, Jill Seibel, Jim Hightower, and many others. And with that, I want to welcome our panel, Diana and Mark, and you can unmute yourself and I will turn this over to you. Thank you for being here.
I want to thank Mark for agreeing to meet with us this evening. The genesis for this particular session really started probably over a year ago when I had a musician who shall not be named in my home for lunch, and they didn't really know what a one sheet was. We were talking about how to first approach radio to get your music out there, and they weren't really familiar with the term one sheet, and it really surprised me at the time. So we literally went over here to my CD case, and I just started pulling out CDs and that had the one sheets in them to show them what they looked like and the type of information that they had on them. Subsequent to that, at the Folk Alliance conferences that I've been to in Toronto, in New Orleans, and Kansas City, one of the most common complaints from the folk DJs about the artists that they're trying to get to them is that they're not prepared, and that at the most basic level, they don't have a one sheet. And so rather just assume that everybody knows what they are and what they do, I thought maybe we should just kind of do a little webinar about what they are, why you might want to have one, who wants them, and then maybe a little side discussion also about liner notes and EPKs, electronic press kits. Mm-hmm. And I know that Mark and I both have probably our own personal preferences to what we like to see on a one sheet or that kind of information, but I'm going to ask Danny to let me share the screen, and I put together a PowerPoint presentation that's real short that Mark has seen, and I want him to feel free to jump in at any point to give his own perspective on what I've got here. And I thought we'd just kind of breeze through the slides kind of quickly and then get to the Q&A about the brass tacks of what we like to see in liner notes and one sheets and stuff like that. So I'm,
Mark, you got any comments before we start?
I just think this is a really great idea. There's so much music out there, and we get so much music sent to the radio station on a regular basis. And we have a little different setup at KKFI, but we do have a music librarian who takes all of the CDs, and then he kind of subjectively decides whose box to put that CD in. And we have 85 locally produced radio shows on KKFI. Every week, volunteers are creating 85 different shows. So that music librarian kind of decides where to drop that CD in all these different slots. And he kind of knows what we like, but we get so much music that we never play. And then at the same time, we're out there looking for new music too. And any way that artists can help it, make it easier for us to find their music, that's the goal of all of this.
Well, let's get started. I'm going to assume, probably wrongly, that you don't know what a one sheet is. But even if you do, let's just, for the sake of argument here, kind of start with some basics on what the hell is a one sheet. And it literally is a single sheet with information about you or your band. And it's essentially a sales sheet that you are using to try to get gigs, to try to sell your music. And at a minimum, it should include your name, a really good picture, a bio, and whatever it is the project that you're talking about, whether it's an EP, whether it's a single, an album, a tour, whatever it is, just the basic information, the who, what, where, and when. I get a lot of music almost every week from a radio promoter out of Cleveland by the name of Angela Backstrom, who specializes in Americana roots music. And I asked her what she would consider the bare minimum. And this second item here is what she says. As a minimum, it should include your name, picture and bio, the project name, the release date, contact information, including any links to your online presence. Another item that she thinks is important is quotes, and giving the writer and the full media source credit. And if you don't have any, because you're just starting out, or this is your first EP or your debut, reach out to your network and ask for a quote. Recently, I was contacted by an artist in Kansas that's a member of the Heartland Song Network, and she asked me to help with her website, write some quotes for her press releases, and also for a one sheet, because she's not ever done one before. So don't be afraid to go out and ask within your own network for help in doing this if you have never done it before. Why should you have a one sheet? Well, if you're booking a tour, promoting an album, an EP, or a single, or if you're looking for a representation, it's really essentially, I think, has replaced like the business card. The one sheet is now your business card, because the business card just doesn't have enough information on it anymore. There's not enough room really to adequately state what your online presence is and all your social media handles and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of evolved into this one sheet. Who wants it? Why should you go to the trouble of doing this one sheet? Who really wants to have it? Mark and I want to have it. Program managers at radio stations, public relation agents, promoters, venue owners, anybody that you are trying to contact to promote your work or to book a gig, or if you're seeking representation, is going to want to see a one sheet. And I think Mark would probably agree with me here. Be aware of who your audience is. Put yourself in our shoes that you're trying to reach. What do you want us to know? What's the most important message that you're trying to get across for this EP or this release? It helps us do our job. You know, I think Mark, I'm not going to speak for you here, but you relayed to me the story or the rabbit holes that you go down, and I do too, when you're trying to track something down when someone doesn't have this information. You want to speak to that for a second?
Yeah, it's, you know, there's just all kinds of degrees of how people put out their music, and some people are really great about, you know, putting out their one sheet. Like this is the new Carsey Blanton CD in one sheet that's just really great, you know, and it has all the songs. And then there's other people that put out. There's an artist in Kansas City that's put out 9 albums this year alone. And they've all been released on Bandcamp, but there's been no promotion for any of them. So no one really even knows that they exist. And he was kind of bummed that people don't know about them, but you'd have to follow his Facebook page personally on a daily basis to to know about it. And there's so many artists that have music where there's no website. The younger artists don't like Facebook anymore, so they have Instagram instead, which is owned by Facebook. And but it's very cryptic, the amount of information that you can find on Instagram. So I find myself going to multiple places to try to track down who's in the band and when was it released and where was it recorded, and how can people find that music. Those 4 really important things that I think we all need to know about when we want to play the music on the radio. Right, Diana? Do you feel that way too?
I do feel that way. And I see that Julia has raised her hand. Do you have a specific question at this that you'd like to inject right here, Julia?
Actually, yeah. As with the, you know, putting ourselves in your shoes, of the things that we may or may not have accomplished as artists, what are the things that you're most drawn to? You know, is it who we, I mean, you've mentioned kind of a lot of different things and maybe what's most important, but what stands out to DJs and makes it a more compelling artist to actually open up the music? Because I'm assuming all the artists that are submitting to you are like, we have good music.
Uh-huh.
But what kind of takes it to that next level, especially if it's an artist you haven't heard of or you don't know of?
You know, I go back to one of the very first interactions I had with a local musician when I went on the air in 2010. And it's still one of my favorite instances or stories to tell about what made an impression on me and made me want to follow up. And it's the Blackbird Review, a husband and wife team here that put out this beautiful CD. I mean, the artwork was wonderful. I'd never heard of them before, but they came to the station. They hand wrote me a note and introduced themselves to me on this beautiful stationery. And there was a piece of chocolate. And I thought,
bribery.
Yeah, I thought this is
pure and simple.
This is crazy. This is crazy. I said, is this the way it's going to be? I mean, I hadn't even been on the air, but like 2 weeks. I said, is this what it's going to be like? I'm going to get stuff in my folder every week. And, but I mean, all kidding aside, the fact that they found out my name and checked out the schedule on KKFI to see what kind of music I played and that it was probably going to be a fit for them and that they wanted to make sure they didn't get lost in the shuffle. So they wrote me a personal note, and I subsequently listened to the record and loved it and played it. And we've since, you know, become friends, and it's 10 years on. So I would say it's really difficult to make a blanket statement about that when you're pushing out something to radio generally, and you're sending it out to dozens and dozens or maybe even hundreds of stations. But what works for me is if, at least in the email that you're sending me, if you're sending me an email, that you say my name. You know, Diana, how's it going? You know, I hope you're having a great week or whatever. I've got this new record coming out. It may be a form email, but it sounds personal to me. And it also indicates to me that you've done some homework and you think that your music is a fit for my show.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. For me, I had a very similar experience, but it was recently. I got this album, I don't know if you can see it. Somehow my background, here we go. It's by a band called Art of Flying, and they're out of Taos, New Mexico. And I got this big package at the station, and it said to Mark Manning, Wednesday Mid Day Medley. And it came with this really cool typewritten paper.
I've got a slide for that, Mark, and I'll go down to it. Is it this one here?
Yeah, it's you had it. There we go.
Yeah.
And so it says, Dear KKFI Music Director, enclosed Art of Flying's 10th release echoes folk and ambience, desiring to be, I don't know how this is really wild, the child of Bowie and Iris Dement, which are 2 of my most played artists on the radio show. Perhaps this is best guided to the inbox of Mark Manning and Wednesday Midday Medley our apologies in advance for the cumbersome format. Perhaps in the future we will do things differently. This time our hatred of CDs overtook our love of bank accounts and convenience. I thought that was hilarious. I had to know more about this band immediately because it's such a beautiful record, and how they know that I do a tribute to Iris DeMent and David Bowie every year, I don't know, but it was just one of those things. It was just too personal. And now I love this record. And when I play this band, people in Amsterdam tune into the radio show to hear them being played on the radio. It's one of those really odd things. So yeah, making that personal connection is so important. And, you know, Diana and I both play area artists, local music a lot on our shows. And that's a big part of our mission. And so we have relationships with artists that we love so much. But it's great when people make that gesture and recognize radio and kind of give it just a little bit of respect, because sometimes when you're doing community radio, you don't always feel like you get the respect of other media. It's sort of at the bottom end of the totem pole in terms of respect. And you know what I'm saying, Diana? Do you feel that way sometimes?
I do. I mean, how many times have I been asked or been told, you know, I don't listen to the radio anymore. I don't think radio is relevant. Well, I think that radio is sound waves going through the air. So I consider lots of things radio, not just terrestrial radio. But I think one of the reasons that people, especially the generations behind us, quit listening to radio is it stopped being relevant to them. And it just became too commercial and didn't play enough music and didn't respond to local tastes or what was really going on in the local community. So to kind of circle back, the one sheet is important. I'm going to show you some examples of what I've gotten just in the last couple of weeks. Because some of them incorporate all of the kind of the basic things, and then the other ones kind of go way out there. So you can kind of take a look and get a feel for what I see on any given week. And I'm sure it's probably very similar for Mark. But my mother always said, you only have one opportunity to make a good first impression. And the one sheet is usually your first impression with radio or for a venue owner or a festival promoter. So it's really important that it look good and that it has the information that you want to impart. And that the next slide was this example that Mark just shared with us. This one from Megan Lacey is an example of a one sheet that I've gotten in the last couple of weeks. And this is this artist's debut record. She doesn't really have that much background, you know, to share on a one sheet. So this is pretty simple. It's got her picture and her name and the name of the album, the release date, her radio contact information. All of that is up front and center where you can see it. It tells me that all of the songs on this album are FCC clean, which is so important. I can't tell you how many albums I get, especially from local and area artists that either don't have the metadata on the CDs at all, if I'm getting a hard copy CD, or there's no indication that the song is, or that the album is clean or not. And we need to know that. And if there's a particular track that you want us to focus on, it's nice to know that. Now, I don't really pay attention to focus tracks myself.
Me neither.
I will be the judge of whether I want to focus on a particular track or not, because I do listen to everything. I might not make it all the way through a song. Personally, if you don't grab me in the first 30 seconds or so, I'm kind of, you know, I may or may not get back to it, but we just get a lot of content, and it's important to have just the basics there. Since she hasn't toured with anyone, I don't think, or toured, you know, she's just letting you know that this is her debut. She's gotten a quote. There's a quote on here, and it gives you a little bit of information about her. So this is pretty standard for a new artist that's just making their debut, singer-songwriter. The next one is a band that is making their debut called the Pink Stones. And they went the route of including quotes from magazines and other media as their focal point for their one sheet. The Pink Stones, it's kind of funny, their name, the guy that leads the band, his last name is actually Pinkston. And they came up with the name Pink Stones as a riff on his last name. The next two one sheets are from Horton Records, which is a regional record company out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, that represents a lot of singer-songwriters that I've come to know and love, that Tulsa music scene down there that's so vibrant. And it's a pretty standard, I don't know that this is, whether he uses Word to put this together, but I think a lot of one sheets are put together using Canva or any number of Adobe programs. But again, this one's a little difficult for me to read. The print's pretty small, but I know this artist already, Chris, and it's got the information about more of his background, kind of more his personal bio. And then this one is from Jesse Aycock, who is a sideman. He's an instrumentalist that plays on a lot of other people's records. And if you ever go to Folk Alliance and wander into the Oklahoma room, he's usually playing pedal steel or dobro or guitar for everybody else. He's got a new record out, and it's the standard Horton Records format. Talk less and listen more. This one's pretty crazy. This one is brand new, and this one sheet was actually on almost like cardstock paper. It was not just like on copy paper. This is pretty thick paper, and it's front and back. This is the front of the one sheet, and it's pretty much just focusing on analytics and numbers. This is how many spins, this is our charting. To me, this is absolutely a one sheet just for radio, and it's not intended for any other kind of media or rollout. This is for radio DJs only. Strung Like a Horse is the name of the band. Whoa is the name of the record. And, I can't imagine what they're spending for radio promotion. They've got 3 different radio promoters working this record. And this is their first record. And on the back, they've got the tracks, press, some quotes. And they're telling you that this record was produced by a guy who has also produced Jason Isbell, Brandi Carlile, it's in the world of Americana. This is a high dollar production here. This is one of my favorite Americana artists, Parker Milsa, has a brand new album out. Again, a completely different format. Basically has all of the go-to information that you want to see. But this is assuming, and Danny pointed this out, this one sheet assumes that you already know who Parker Millsap is. The format's just a little bit different. But it goes into production features, analytics, contact information, focus tracks. There's a lot of information on this one sheet. Now this one is a new band, brand new band. It's kind of hard to read in person as well. So, be aware of little things like font and print and colors and stuff, because it can be hard for us to read. Mark, I don't know how you feel about this, but sometimes the verbiage or the description that people come up with in these one sheets is comical, if not embarrassing. I mean, this one says, Fretland, the shimmering Americana sensation. Play songs that sway between steel-soaked yearning and Lynchian intimacy. I do not know what that means. I feel like I feel like I need a cigarette right now. A sound where fragile alt country builds to passionate gushes of indie rock. I don't even know what to think about that. When I listened to the record, it was nice, but I wouldn't say that I felt really passionate. I felt that, I don't know. Just be careful, I think, with how you describe yourself. Another one that I got said, if Minnie Pearl and Bruce Springsteen had a child, that's what this sounds like. And I thought, Minnie Pearl and Bruce Springsteen, I don't know that I want to know what that would sound like. This is the last one of an example, and then we'll throw it up to some questions. Hallie Kearns is a young lady that is from Columbia, Missouri, that I came to know several years ago when I met her at the Bridge when Sarah Morgan was doing an in-studio performance over there at the Bridge. And somebody brought Hallie in because they wanted Hallie to meet Sarah. And long story short, we ended up going on a radio tour together. Sarah hired Hallie to help her put this radio tour together for Drive a Tractor, probably 4 years ago or whatever. Hallie was just starting to play the guitar. She was just starting to play music. She was 18 or 19 at that time. And this is where she is now. Hallie has moved to Nashville and she has got the machine working for her. And this is her one sheet. And it is all about the stats and all about social media. There's a lot going on there in terms of different fonts and whatever, but the story so far, what's next, it gives you a bunch of stats. She has 500,000 monthly listeners. I suppose that's probably a congregation or aggregate of all of these platforms down here together. But this is her one sheet that's being sent to mainstream country radio and pop stations. And it's a beautiful picture and she's a beautiful girl. This is some source information for one sheets and some YouTube videos on liner notes and electronic press kits that I can either share in the chat, or if you do want this entire PowerPoint, we can send it to you or a link to where you can see it. But does anybody have any questions so far at this point about one sheets? Or Mark, did you want to add anything?
I just want to add that basically these are a tool that artists use. Record labels, a lot of people say, what does a record label do for the artist? In Kansas City, there's two new up and coming record labels, one called Manor Records, which is introducing a lot of young artists who are between the ages of 19 and 25, that range. And then also Black Site Records, which is a record label that's doing a lot of punk and rock bands. But both of those labels do an excellent job of letting DJs know about the music coming out, the singles, the album release, all the information that we need to know in a press release form and in a one sheet. And then also downloads for us to download the music and be able to have the files to play on the radio before the album is released. All of that is a lot of work to do for these labels, but independent artists also do the same thing that labels do. It's just they have to do it themselves. And so it's just how much you want to invest in getting your music out there to not just your local radio station, but stations throughout the region and all over the country. If you want to distribute your music that way, it's a really great tool to capture the attention of the people that open that envelope at that radio station.
Looks like Julia, you have a question, dear?
How, in relation to when an album or a single or an EP is released, when would you like to be receiving the music?
Now that I'm on Fridays, are going to be on Fridays. That is release day now. I think Tuesdays used to be release day, new music release day, but now Friday has become kind of the standard release day. And so I personally would like the music at least 2 to 3 to 4 weeks ahead of when you want it to start airing on the radio, so that I can plug it into the playlist and get it scheduled to be played the day you want it played. The reason that that's important for some artists is that they're trying to get chart spins to get charted. I personally do not report to any of the charts because I don't want anybody telling me what to play or how many times to play it. They can go onto my Spinatron page and see what I spin every week if they're really interested in counting the spins and what it is I spin. But I personally would like the music at least 3 or 4 weeks ahead of when you want it played. If you don't care and you want to send it to me and you can play this right away, that's fine too. Just let me know that. But a lot of the music that I get from artists that are out of Nashville or Austin or Asheville or New York or LA, there's a release date and they don't want it played before then. So the sooner that I can get it so that I can make sure that I plug it into a playlist to play it when you want it, the better.
I agree. And that, like, I think 3 to 4 weeks is a good time. 2 weeks is better than like the day before, because we get a lot of that also. But it's like I'm scheduling guests on the radio show 8 weeks ahead of time. Like right now, the guest slots are booked up through the end of June on their Wednesday Midday Medley, and all of those guests, not all of them, but most of them are musicians that are going to want to feature music from their records. So that's part of the playlist for that show. So we're planning these shows weeks ahead of time, and that ensures your play, that you're being played on the radio. If you can get the music to the producer and host of the show beforehand, it really helps. And then also where listeners can find that music, because a lot of times people will release new music, but then it's not available for anybody to download from any sites on that release day, which can be frustrating for people. So we need to know where will it be available, and on all sites is like preferable, but it's not always that way.
Danny, are there any other questions in the chat?
Yeah,
I can't see the chat room when I'm screen sharing.
I have a question from Scott. It says, all examples have been paper. Is paper your preferred media?
I don't mind paper, but I am trying to make the switch to digital just because I don't have room for any more CDs. But this information that I'm showing to you tonight is paper, but I could also pull up on the screen a complete digital package that I got from Sarah Morgan this week that has the one sheet digitally, all of the lyrics to all of the new songs, the promo picture, the entire package is digital that she sent me. So I honestly I love paper. I mean, I love to read liner notes and all that, but I'm just as good these days with having it digitally because I do organize it and save it and have it in folders in my Dropbox so I can get to it. Also, but it is a personal preference. I mean, every single DJ is different as to what they like.
I mean, ultimately, we're going to really want to have your music digitally because that's kind of how we organize our playlists and play our music at the radio station. People will burn music to a CD, or I play directly from a device, from high quality digital files. I prefer WAV or higher on those so that we have the highest quality of fidelity also. But just like Diana said that the one sheet is a business card, a CD is basically a business card. And it's not my favorite medium. I prefer vinyl, actually, for myself personally. But the CD is just so easy for people to send in the mail. and radio stations and artists and labels are still sending out CDs to let people know about their music. And it's the easiest thing to mail other than a cassette, which we don't have a lot of cassette players, but there are local labels that are sending out cassettes too now, which is crazy. But it's really easy to put this paper in the CD. That's one way to do it, but you don't have to do it that way. We take music always, right, Diana?
It's true, but I also would say that I recognize as an independent artist, mailing CDs is expensive. The postage is expensive. I get probably 5 or 6 CDs still a week, you know, in the mail that are in my folder when I go in there, and I look at the postage that's on there, and it's $3 or $4 or whatever it is a piece. And if you're sending out hundreds of them, that's really, really expensive. So what I tell the radio promoters is, you know, if you're going to send it to me, fine. But I personally would rather you keep the CD for your own merch so that you can sell it if you're a touring musician, so that you have that as merch. I don't want to take money out of your, you know, they're sending us these CDs at their expense and they're paying for the postage.
Diana, you get CDs from the music library at KKFI, right?
Yes.
And you get a lot of CDs from the music library that you may never play on your show, right?
Right.
What do you do with all, I mean, I end up at the end of the year with this huge amount of CDs that I may not ever want. And I mean, don't you find the CD is kind of a wasteful?
Well, what I started doing is becoming disciplined enough that I would listen to it that week. And if I didn't feel like it was a fit, but it might fit on another show, I would return it to the station with a sticky note on it. This would be a better fit for the Rockabilly Mood Swing, or this would be a better fit, you know, for Mark Manning or whatever. Please, you know, forward it on to them. If I didn't feel like I had enough time to give it a proper listen, I import it to my iTunes and I listen to it later, but I still return the CD to the station so that someone else can have the opportunity to listen to it and to have it, so that I don't have 500 CDs by the end of the year. Because I used to have 500 CDs at the end of the year. I just got into a rhythm where I'm disciplining myself that I listen to everything I get that week. And if I want to keep it, I do. If I want to pass it on to someone else, I take it back to the station with a note on it to please, or I put it in their folder myself with a note on it. And if I get an email from that artist saying, I'm just following up, did you get my CD? Did you have a chance to listen to it? What did you think? I will answer them and I will tell them that, you know, the truth, whether I did or didn't, if I liked it, or if I thought it was a better fit for some other show, I tell them that. And I mean, they're always, I'm grateful for anybody who does the follow up. And I think that they're grateful for the opportunity to know that it might be redirected to another show. But I don't keep them anymore unless like it's a really favorite artist, you know, but I send them back to the station so that they can be shared. And if I want the music, I import it. And
Norm, the librarian, doesn't give you a hard time when you do that? Because whenever I return them back, he's like,
it's his job, sorry.
Let's go to Julia first, and then Danielle has a question. Julia?
When we're sending files digitally to a station like the One Sheet, are you wanting like a link to a Dropbox that has all of these different files in it? Are you wanting a page, sort of a secret page on a website? What's your preferred way of receiving this digital information? And I think this is also a part of one of Danielle's questions too, is do you need to have a physical release or can it be purely digital?
It can be purely digital. And a lot of releases are purely digital because the artist may not have the backing to do a physical release, and that's okay also. And we get a lot of Dropbox, like I have a Dropbox account and I get a lot of Dropbox. I get a lot of Google files that way also. And I also get a lot of secret file within Bandcamp. Like if I have a code, I can go to the Bandcamp page and download the album before it goes on sale. That's one of my favorite ways to do it because I happen to be a big fan of Bandcamp because it gives you liner notes and it gives you lyrics and it gives you credits of who's in the band and who the producer is and where it was recorded. And I like kind of the way they have set up Bandcamp Fridays and that whole situation. I can buy the music from Bandcamp also if I want to. But those are three ways, but there's, you know, artists also just send the files directly to me too sometimes. And so it can be what way works best for you and the relationship maybe that you have with the show. At some radio stations, you send it to a music director. And at KKFI, it's a little bit different. If you know the DJ and you send directly to the DJ, that's probably an advantage. Wouldn't you say, Diana?
I think it's an advantage, especially if it's time sensitive, because it's going to be delayed if it goes to the new music librarian. If you've got a specific release date that you're trying to hit, and it, you know, our music librarian is a volunteer like the rest of us are, and he may or may not get to something in as timely as you would like. So I think Mark has been doing this longer than I have, and is more ingratiated into the local music scene probably more than I am. Yes, I have personal relationships with a lot of artists where they just send me a message on Facebook Messenger, or if they've sent me stuff before, they already know what my Dropbox is and they just send it to me and let me know that it's going on. I'm kind of late to Bandcamp, I'm sorry to say, but I have started to, I mean, I've got an account, I'm buying music off of there. I'm a liner note geek, so I do appreciate that they're doing that. I get stuff, you know, codes from SoundCloud accounts where folks will send me the code to their SoundCloud. If they have an electronic press kit, that's usually a hidden page on their website, and they'll give you the link for it so that you can get into their EPK and go down whatever rabbit hole that they've got on there. But I personally, lately have adopted a preference for digital because of space concerns. And I also want it to be the most cost effective for the artist. I don't want them spending money to provide their music to me. I want to buy it from them. But I don't want to cost them any money.
Danielle?
Yeah, I had a couple questions. First, and maybe easy to answer, what is the difference between FCC clean and parental advisory or explicit? And then I was wondering, what if we have an older release that we never sent into radio stations and aren't planning a tour? Is it even worth our time to try and share music with you that may be old or doesn't have like a brand new shiny release date on it?
Can I jump in on that real quick? The
Sure.
second part of your question, yes. If it's an older release, don't hesitate to send it in. Sometimes releases get lost in the mix. And a really great example of that is a Lawrence band called Lesser Pleasures. They put out a record last year in the middle of the year, and somehow it didn't go anywhere. But all of a sudden, in the last like 6 weeks, it's like they reminded people that it existed and sent out little files here and there. And it's now like being played in, I think, the A cycle of the Bridge. And I've been playing it on the Wednesday Mid Day Medley too. And it's really great music. And it just kind of got lost in the shuffle. And that's okay to remind people of an older release. As far as the FCC clean, the words that aren't allowed on radio. Does everyone know the words that aren't allowed on radio? Those words don't exist, basically. I think parental advisory can even go beyond just those 4 words into maybe if a song is really sexualized or if a song is really violent, perhaps, then they can actually do more of a parental. I'm not a specialist on this, but I think that's part of the, like Darling Nikki, Prince's song, Darling Nikki on Purple Rain. I don't believe there's any words that are against the FCC. It's just the action of the song is very sexual for a young person maybe to be listening to. So that's why they wanted to have the parental advisory sticker put on that that was actually the example of how they started Parental. I think that song helped spark a lot of that, if you're familiar with that record.
And I think there's different community standards too. I mean, there are the 7 deadly words or whatever that are FCC prohibited that we can actually be fined for if we air them. And you might be surprised, you know, what a couple of them are. But I so appreciate it when we get a radio edit.
I do too.
When you get a radio edit of the song that's got the FCC violation on it, or has explicit. If they have a radio edit version on the album too, I love it when they do that, because I'm not going to take the time to import the song and create my own radio edit so I can play it, you know. And different standards, are different communities have different standards. I believe we can play a song if it has the word ass in it and that we won't get fined.
Right.
But I've received radio edits from songs where that's the word that they're afraid is offensive. And so they create a radio edit that deletes or beeps over the word ass. And it's not a FCC prohibited word. But they want to make sure that the song gets played, and they don't want to take the chance that it's going to violate a community standard. So they create a radio edit for it.
I do live edits almost every week, which I hate to do, because it's exciting, because you have to literally pod down at an exact moment of a word that might be an S-bomb or an F-bomb.
I've tried and failed sometimes. I mean, sometimes I'm successful.
I mean, we have a 7-second delay also, but that's 7 seconds.
To listening, because we are 7-second delay.
7 seconds of nothing, and I hate that. So I do live edits a lot. I'm always asking hip hop artists, you know, please, can I have a live edit? Because hip hop doesn't get played on the radio enough. And it's a misunderstood genre. And it's really a beautiful art form, and it's poetic as hell. And what I end up finding myself having to do is transcribe the lyrics of a song, which I don't know if you've ever tried to do that before, but it's a lot of work. And I transcribe the lyrics of the song, and then I attach a time on a word. So I know that at this time in the song, I have to take it down to get rid of a bad word. It's really funny, because there's a lot of examples, but when you get an FCC edit, they may take out an S-bomb and an F-bomb, but they'll also probably remove the N-word from a song too, which some people will debate that as whether it's something that should be in a lyric or not. If it's a Black artist singing about their community, I find it to be okay for me to play that. I'm not going to use that word myself, but if it's representative of a story within a context of a hip hop song, I'm not going to censor that myself. Also, the F word in terms of the gay community, you know, that might not be a good thing to play. It depends on the show. Like Diana and I do shows in the morning. So the audience listening to the radio in the morning is so different than an audience listening late at night. And we have to respect that a lot of things can be offensive. I mean, I played Nancy Sinatra the day after Bush was elected, and somebody was offended by that. But, but you know, there's a lot of different things that make people uncomfortable about that. But radio edits are helpful. FCC words are, at KKFI, we're currently debating whether or not we want our late night programs to be able to play, because that FCC rules change after 10 o'clock at night. And you can play F-bombs and S-bombs, but not on KKFI. We have a policy against that. But we have people that are lobbying to change those rules just to be able to play certain kinds of music that maybe is more marginalized and not played on the radio because of the language. And part of KKFI is representing voices that are not heard in other stations and in other media. That's part of our mission as a radio station.
Christina, you got a question? Christine?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. First of all, thanks for putting this together. I'm relatively green as an artist myself, but this is helping me right now because I'm trying to help my dad pull together archives of recordings. He has quite a few vinyl records from his early recordings, and none of that is really represented digitally. And so it's not so much that we're looking to push gigs or the recordings as it is more availability. Could you speak a little bit toward the various outlets that are there? You already spoke about Bandcamp, and that's one we're seriously considering, to be able to not just market the music itself and offer it digitally. We do have much of it digitized, not all of it, but then also to sell the vinyl. You spoke also about how it's a little easier, Bandcamp, for some of you, but I mean, I'm starting from scratch for him. I'd like to get some feel also maybe from the other artists, how it works for you guys, if it's, if one is a little easier, a little more friendly than others. I know recently my band River Cow Orchestra had a lot of content on CD Baby, and they dropped part of the service recently, so we ended up having to scramble to make sure all our metadata was out there. And basically they said, if you don't pay shipping for all of the merch that you have on site with us, we're going to trash it. Has anybody else had other experiences like that with these other outlets? Anyway, sorry, I'm taking up a lot of time, but thanks for the time.
Does anybody have any comments? Any to help here?
Well, I just wanted to say Bandcamp is just one place. There's so many platforms where you can sell your music. Of course, iTunes, Amazon, of course. CD Baby, I think, has gone completely just digital now, haven't they? They only are selling digital files of music now. They're not selling physical. And there's other places, of course. Nowadays, people are not using the radio to break music, because radio doesn't break music anymore like it used to. People are using television. So a lot of people are sending their music into television shows to get licensed, and you might hear it on Grey's Anatomy for the first time, and that's how that song got broke. Or Spotify, of course, I've been resistant to Spotify myself personally, but everybody is on Spotify now, and everybody's talking about how many spins they get on Spotify as a way to introduce themselves. TikTok is also a way people are breaking themselves into the world. There's like a 22-year-old kid in Overland Park who's got like 1.5 million spins on Spotify, and no radio station knows of him, but he's huge and getting signed to a national record label because of his music being exposed on Spotify and SoundCloud also. There's a local artist, Sean Stewart, who all of a sudden got a website this year and is now he's writing songs specifically for TikTok, specifically for Spotify, for country, for pop. He's trying to, I don't know, he's not writing songs the way I think of people writing songs. He's writing songs for marketing, really. But SoundCloud, he saw like 1.5 million spins of some of his music on SoundCloud.
And I think, it doesn't really matter, in my mind, it doesn't matter what platform you land on or that you choose. Still, the concept of the one sheet, digital or otherwise, is really important. You've got to somehow codify or summarize the project, whatever it is, whether it's an EP, a collection, a compilation, whatever it is. You've got to somehow distill the most basic information about the project into a one sheet, whether it's paper or digital. And whether you share it with the radio people or the venue owners or the festival promoters or whoever it is that you want to try to get this music out to, give some serious thought about how you're going to distill the most important information about it into a one sheet. And I didn't share the slides on liner notes and EPKs, but you'll get the link for all of that.
I was going to ask you just to speak to liner notes for just a second about the importance of liner notes and who you have playing on your product, because that sometimes will tweak you into, you know, listening to whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a music fan nerd for over 50 years, and I am of a vintage where my musical life started in the 60s and 70s with LPs, and the liner notes were absolutely very basic. They were the notes in the liner of the album. That's what they were. And they kind of, with the advent of CDs in the 80s and 90s, morphed into booklets and, you know, a lot of information. But I've always been a nerd about drilling down to who the players are, you know, who the instrumentalists are on the record, who the producers are, what studios they're using. Just all that kind of information is fascinating to me. I have come to know albums and artists and played them on the radio because of one item on a liner note. If I see that John Fulbright is playing full keyboards on an album, or if I see that a certain producer that I really like is the one who produced the record, I will give it a listen. And that's something that tweaks my interest, but that's just me. But if you're going to bother doing liner notes, give credit to the people that need to have credit. If you have a little story that you want to tell, like a 1 or 2 line story about the song that makes it personal and relatable, do it. You know, put it in there. If you want to thank your mom, do it. Put it in there. Because it makes it human. It makes it relatable. But don't not do liner notes, in my opinion. The more information that you can give me in liner notes, and I like lyrics. You know, I love to read lyrics. You can't always understand them clearly in the records. It also helps for screening for FCC. To have the lyrics, but I'm a big fan of having liner notes, but having liner notes that are seriously legible. The fonts on some of these things are so small, or the fonts are so kind of dirty and messy, I can't read them. So be aware of be in our shoes, that we're looking at dozens, if not hundreds of these every year. And we want to know the information, but if it's not legible or it's not relatable,
Do you think sometimes less is more?
I think it can be. It depends on what you write about. And I know, like, for me, 2 really great examples of liner notes for me, because I love liner notes also. And the area band Shy Boys, they're an amazing band from Kansas City, and they got signed to Polyvinyl Records, which is a national record label. And their second album, their Polyvinyl debut, their second full-length album, Kevin Morby, you may know his name, he's a national recording artist who just happens to live here in Kansas City with his girlfriend, Katie Crutchfield, Waxahachie. And the 2 of them recently sold out 3 nights in a row at Lemonade Park. I unfortunately didn't get tickets, but Kevin Morby wrote the liner notes to the Shy Boys Polyvinyl debut album, Bell House. And it was such a beautiful tribute to this young band that he wrote for them. And he wrote it so beautifully, and it just speaks to the Shy Boys, and it speaks to him as a fan of theirs. And I love that. And can I share with you liner notes that were written very briefly? Like you asked about less is more. Mm-hmm. Can I share with you my favorite liner notes of all time?
Sure.
This is from one of my favorite singer-songwriters of the world. And these are the liner notes to her first debut album. It goes like this. One night after receiving a copy of Let the Mystery Be, I was listening to a tape while frying a dozen or so pork chops in a skillet. Well, Iris DeMent starts singing about Mama's Opry, and being the sentimental fellow I am, I got a lump in my throat and a tear fell from my eyes into the hot oil. Well, that oil popped out and burnt my arm as if the pork chops were trying to say, shut up or I'll really give you something to cry about. Of course, pork chops can't talk, but Iris DeMent's songs can. They talk about isolated memories of life, love, and living. And Iris has a voice I like a whole lot, like one you've never heard before, like one you have heard before, but not really. So listen to this music, this Iris DeMent. It's good for you. And if pork chops could talk, they'd probably learn how to sing one of her songs. And then we'd all have something to cry about. John Prine. He wrote that for Iris for her first record. And I don't think you can ask for better liner notes than that, can you? No. I mean,
you know, and I think really, folks, people that are on community radio, we can't speak for everybody, but DJs that are still doing this, we care about this stuff. We care about the details. We care about the artist. We care about the art. We're just waiting to hear that next great song that's going to make us cry or make us laugh or whatever. That's why I still do this literally 50 years into it. You know, I'm looking to hear that next song that's going to really make me feel something or want to say something. And so just take care to know that the people that are on the radio playing your music, I think most of us really do care, and we want you to succeed. We want people to hear your music. And that's all I have to say about that.
I agree.
I want to add to that because I've been around Diana now for a few years and watching her go through her process. And, you know, she showed me some one sheets, and they don't have to be Shakespearean by any means. I mean, these people like Mark and Diana and a lot of the, you know, community radio stations at whatever level, I mean, they're your music neighbors. They really are. And it's just like talking over the fence. So, you know, I say, you know, keep it simple, you know, and just talk to them like you'd be talking to them over your fence. And I've seen her eyes light up, and I've seen her go, man, I just wish they would use 3 adjectives instead of 8, you know, to describe their music.
Well, that's the old newspaper copy editor in me.
You know, so I've watched this process, and I think it's very valuable and very important. You know, that these people are volunteers, and they spend countless hours loving your music. So, you know, it's a process.
And a lot of the people that are in this Zoom right now, I love their music. You know what I mean? A lot of the artists that we have that are taking part in this today, I'm a big fan of them. So we just want your music, and we want to know when you want us to play it, and any information you have about it, like where it was recorded, what studio, who recorded it with you, the other musicians. All of those bits of information are important to us, because that's the other thing that we do on community radio is we like to give more information about the music itself, not just the name of the song and the artist. But
because, you know, I'm here to tell you, and I'm sure Mark will tell you too, we get phone calls while we're on the air asking us right there in real time, who was that? What was that? Where can I find it? Where can I buy it? Where's this playlist? If not while we're on the air, immediately after we get off the air. And I also will tell you that, you know, if you're going to do a one sheet and you're agonizing over something, I mean, and send me an email. I mean, we'll talk through it
for sure,
or whatever. And it's just my opinion. It's just my opinion. But I think that we've got world-class Olympics level musicians in this town, and Danny and I and the board of Heartland Song Network are committed to help elevate what you are doing through education, collaboration, and mentorship, just like Danny said at the outset. And KKFI is not going anywhere. The Heartland Song Network is just getting started, like many of you are just getting started, and we're here to help. And we want you to be able to stay here. If you choose to live here and try to conduct your music career from Kansas City, we want to do what we can to support you so that you don't have to move and go somewhere else. Danielle, I'm going to forget if I don't, your face. You want to take a picture of this group, don't you?
Yeah.
Smiling.
Thank you for remembering. I'd love to take a screen grab of us on the webinar to post on the Heartland social channels tomorrow.
Right before I want to introduce one of our other board members that came on, David Williamson. Say hello, David. Wave to David. So now you can have it, Danielle. I'm sorry.
Okay, cool. So hi, David. And so what I'm going to do, if you don't want to be in the picture, you can shut off your camera. But if you do want to be in the camera, will you just, in the shot, will you just kind of lurch forward? Well, I'll count us down and we can take 3. So here's our first one. We go 3, 2, 1. Got it. Let's do a silly, wacky one. Maybe you're like wearing headphones if you're the DJ, or you're like submitting a CD if you're the artist. I'm like, ready, set, go. Okay, and then one more now that we're warmed up. Just regular, just one we can send to mom for Mother's Day. Ready, set, go. Thank you so much for remembering, Diana, and thanks to Mark and Diana.
That's why they pay me the big bucks, honey. That's why they pay me.
Is there any other questions from anybody? Any comments anybody wants to give? Was this worthwhile to you? Can we continue on?
Yeah, was this, Julia, was this helpful?
I think it's really helpful when we can get, as artists, brass tacks information, because sometimes seminars or conferences or sort of these moments tend to be a bit broad and really, if you kind of have a general idea, then they don't get any more helpful than that. But when you give these examples and you can cite more specifically what it is that you're looking for and giving insight into your own process, I find that to be personally really helpful. And I think you're awesome for doing this. And I really appreciate you taking the time to do this for us.
May I chime in on that? I don't mean to interrupt you, but that was exactly what I was going to say, is just thank you for reaching out and doing it, because so often you don't even know if you're reaching somebody, unless they do say, oh, I love it, but then they're already kind of a fan, shall we say, and so we don't know, is it really getting shared to other people, that sort of thing. So just thanks for asking and for having us. Sorry, Julia.
Joy, how about you? Joy Zimmerman?
Yes, this was really, really great. Thanks so much. I feel funny that I didn't really know that much about one sheets before. So yeah, it's just great to get better at our craft of trying to promote ourselves.
Well, I have hundreds of them in my house. So if you want to come over and go through my CD collection.
Where was it that you live?
Westwood. No, I kind of poo-pooed them at first and didn't really pay that much attention to them, but they really have kind of evolved over the 10 years that I've been on the radio anyway, as the technology has changed and as social media has become so important, and the online and the streaming, none of that was in play when I started 10 years ago. So I imagine when Mark started, I don't know.
We have AOL. Come on, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Well, and may I speak toward that, because it's like when you worked in record stores like me, these things were in with the records sometimes. And every once in a while, vintage, you will still turn up at these things where they say, oh, cut out this coupon and send it in to us. And we'll, for the fan club or whatever it is. So it actually is kind of cool to watch, for me, to watch the evolution of how that's come from early, record marketing days, and to hear that also from you guys in radio. That's kind of why I asked, because I want to know what that picture looks like right now to radio people. I've seen what it used to be, and then I kind of dropped off of that maybe about MySpace.
Well, and I think also it depends on the genre of music that you're in. You know, I'm an Americana roots folk on the radio. I like everything, but I don't play hip hop or a lot of strict pop music. So I don't even know what they're doing. But my demographic is older, and, you know, I'm not totally into folk music, but a lot of folk DJs are even older than I am, and they're very set in their ways, and they're not going to change, and they're always going to have vinyl and CDs, and they're not going to do social media, yada, yada, yada. But if you're a young artist just starting out and you want airplay and you are going to be doing all this stuff yourselves, you need to get savvy about whatever the latest method of communication is. And the one sheet is evolving as not to what it does, but what it contains is definitely evolving and expanding now that streaming and online presence is so important. Everybody, it's all about the analytics.
And,
show me the analytics.
And one other thing I just want to add real quick here, and this can be part of a one sheet, but develop it into your whole marketing strategy for your record, is tell us a story. I mean, create a story about your release or your record. Radio is a great place for storytelling, and we're always looking for stories to tell that people can relate to your music through, or can make a connection between your music and another person's music, or how you made that record. Like Knife Crime is a local band that just put out a new album called Lovely Gary. And it's a beautiful album. It's really great. It's through Black Site Records. And part of their story is that when they first made the album, someone burglarized the studio and took all the equipment. So they had to start over. And then when they started over, 3 of the band members left the band. So they had to find a new band. And then they finally got ready to put the record out. And then the pandemic hit. And that was kind of, you know, and this band has been around for a long time, and this is their debut record. So it kind of gave them something to talk about, because people don't always know what they're going to talk about when they go on a radio show to promote their record. Not to give the Shy Boys a bad thing, but they're really shy. And when they came on the radio, all their answers were like, yes.
The monosyllabic nightmare.
You know, I need to give them lots of caffeine, you know. But if you have a story to tell, you know, that go like Julia, your whole idea of how you put your last 2 albums together is a great story to tell, and goes in so many directions with
your democratically created place.
Yeah, and then the fact that you're doing these covers, and we've never really heard some of these songs sung from a female point of view. You're doing a lot of songs where men originally sang those lyrics, and hearing you sing Born in the USA is like a revelation to me. When I hear that song, I'm hearing it in a whole new way. And that's part of your story, of your records that are engaging and gets the listener involved, and they want to go out and check out that album and learn more about it.
Rex, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm just going to say a couple of things. First, thanks Diane and Mark for doing this, and kind of twofold as an artist and as being on the board of directors for Heartland. I think one of our major things is community, developing a community. And to me, I mean, we've done a lot of webinars and discussions. I think we need to keep doing stuff like this because it creates more communication, more of a community that we know the industry people, they know us. And I know most everybody here this evening, some of you not, but I think it also helps establish relationships. And I think it was very helpful and very insightful. So thank you guys and gals.
David?
Yeah, I'd like to take just a moment to echo Rex's sentiments on the thank you to Diana and Mark. Thank you for lending your expertise to us this evening, and telling us what you see from the from the other side of the turntable, so to speak. Speaking of turntables, the last time I made a one sheet, they were still using turntables. So
we use them.
So
we still use them.
You still use them. Okay, well that's nice to know. That's nice to know. But
never went away for some of us.
Well, when I made a one sheet, the last time I made a one sheet, the year began with the numbers 1 and 9. This was very helpful information, not only for our younger members, but for some of the older ones too, who were trying to keep their hands in the business and stay a little bit relevant at least. So thank you very much for.
Well, you're welcome, and it's to be continued. We may have not completely different, but some different insights a year from now, because coming out of this pandemic and whatever the new normal is going to be for not only releasing music, but touring and festivals and all that kind of stuff, we just have to keep our ear to the ground and figure out best. I mean, I know that I'm segueing to Fridays, and I'm really excited about the opportunities that's going to give me as a radio host to conduct more on-air interviews with touring artists. And once we're open back up, having people live in the studio again, because in my mind, it makes for really great radio. And I think the listeners like it. And
sure.
It gives us the opportunity to keep track of artists as they're developing. You know, they can come in at the very beginning and in the middle and just whenever. But I want to thank Mark again for agreeing to do this with me, because I knew that he had his own perspective on it and a lot more experience.
Can I say one more thing? One last thing. I just want to say thank you to all the people that are here. And there's a lot of women artists that are in this webinar tonight. And I want to speak directly to all of you. The music business is male dominated. Of course, we know that. And we know that in commercial radio, it's like 80% male voice to 20% female voice, maybe even not that good, maybe even worse in country radio, I don't know. I've heard different statistics. I am on a radio show that's on a community radio station that has a mission to provide a voice for voices that are not represented fairly in other media. So about 5 or 6 years ago, I just made a conscious decision that every playlist I do, after I create it, I go down and count how many female voices, how many male voices, and it's got to be 50-50 or I won't do the show. So I'm doing shows that have 50-50 female to male ratio in the voices of those shows, because I want to try to bring the fairness back or restore, or whatever. We need to work on those things. There's so many more male local artists than female local artists that I have to play national female artists to help my 50-50 thing work out. So the more that we can encourage women in the industry, like all of you, because you're like leaders and pioneers of all of this, the better. And then also that goes for people of color. I am trying to have at least a 30 to 40% ratio of people of color in every single playlist that I do too. And I know imposing these ratios can seem like an artificial thing to do to a natural idea of music and listening to it. But if we don't impose those, we're never going to change anything. And we have to continually change to make the music business more equal to women, because it's just been so incredibly off balance for so many decades. And that's one of the things that your organization is working on also, and that all of our organizations in Kansas City. But I just want to make that point, that that's one of my personal missions. And that's part of our whole mission at KKFI. That's what makes us different from any other broadcast medium, because we are trying to represent those things that aren't represented in other places.
And I can guarantee you there's not, I started my broadcast career when I was 59. That could have not happened anywhere but on community, you know, non-commercial radio. I would have not been given the time of day at all. And here I am, you know, 11 years past that, and I still am amazed every day that I get to do what I get to do. It's a real honor and a pleasure. Thanks for joining us tonight. I didn't intend for us to go this long, but it's been
I was going to say too that Mark just gave you his one sheet.
I'm always ready.
Shame on me, I didn't get mine together.
Yeah. So, but that's wonderful. And I really enjoy what you say, Mark, about these one sheets that it, you know, you tell a story, because writing a song is you're telling a story. So extend that to your one sheet and make that part of your art. So
the Kansas City music community is one huge, beautiful story. And within that story are hundreds and thousands of other stories that all kind of relate to each other. And it's all about humanity and love and creativity and expression and art, all these things that keep us alive, all these things that are so important to us.
Well, I just want to thank you, Mark, and thank you, Diana, for taking your time. I mean, this was really good. We'll be having some more of these. And if you have any suggestions or ideas on things that you want to know, or you want us to investigate and pull in the people to have more panel discussions like this, just contact us at the Heartland Song Network, email us, and we will do the research, we will put it together, and we will bring it to you. So everybody just have a great evening, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Good night, all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.